Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk to you about Scooby-Doo Curse of the Lake Monster. I think that's what it's called. So, a couple of days ago, I reviewed Scooby-Doo The Mystery Begins. And that's the Cartoon Network live action movie. And that was actually a pretty good movie. Like, I give them their props. It was pretty solid. And there was only a couple of weak things, a couple of flaws here and there, but for the most part, it was a pretty decent movie. And it was not as funny or exciting as a flashy as the James Gunn Scooby-Doo movies, but they did a good job for the budget they had, except for Scooby-Doo. But the writing was good, the plot was good, this and that. Now comes this movie. How in the world did they drop the ball so hard with this movie? They truly missed the mark because they was trying too hard to be like an homage to the old classic Scooby-Doo movies. Now, one thing I said about the first one was that for the most part, they have their traits here and there of like what they do in Scooby-Doo like cartoon series. But they never did like the whole chase scene with the music or the chase scene in different rooms and but Scooby at like Scooby, but he wasn't too cartoonish in that first movie. In this one, they went full Scooby-Doo cartoon. This one is very childish. This is very animated. This is very what you don't want to do with a live action adaptation. You don't want to make it exactly like an old fashioned cartoon. It's not going to translate well on the big screen. Actually, it wasn't even really the big screen. It was a small screen. It's TV because it's a TV movie. But either way, this is one of the type of movies that will be a direct to DVD or direct to video type stuff. Like, you don't want to do that. And they did that. And they dropped the ball big time with this movie. I could not believe just how like cartoonish it was. And the bad thing is the plot is actually decent. The acting is actually decent. But when you see all this cartoonish stuff and you see the personalities are slightly different from the first movie, then it's kind of like, well, why did you do this for? Because, okay, they had a bunch of famous people cameo or actually guest star in this movie. Richard Mall, Nichelle Nichols, Jefferson Darcy from Married with Children. They had some big name people making guest stars. All the big name people, man, their acting was amazing. Gotta give it up to the Velma in this movie. This is one of the best performances I've ever seen her in. I've seen her in at least 4 stuff. And this is the best performance she's ever given. And she was a better Velma in this than she was in the first one. The first one, she was good too. But this one, she just knocked it out the park. And, the dude Shaggy, got to give it up to him. Like, trying to follow in Matthew Lillard's footsteps is hard, but the man can do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's his own version of Shaggy, and he looks more like Shaggy. The actress who plays Daphne, she looks just like Daphne and stuff. And her character is just a different version of Daphne, who's kind of like the classic, but more modern and everything. Then you have Fred. To be fair, Robbie M. Nell did a slightly better job than the first movie. I still don't like his acting. He had his best scenes with Daphne. With everybody else, he was just Robbie M. Nell. And, his personality changed a lot in this. In the first movie, he was just like a jock, but a sensitive jock. He was nice and he tried to help people. And here, he's just a bit of a douchey like jock who treats women like a typical jock and everything. Which is sad because they didn't have to do that to him. And so in this one, Shaggy, he's not as cowardly. Well, he is still cowardly, but not as cowardly as like in most stuff. He still eats, but he still doesn't eat as crazy as he does in other stuff. They do the whole big stack sandwich thing. And I don't know if they did it in the first one, but sometimes I don't mind that, but I think how you gonna eat that? You know what I'm saying? So they went a little cartoony with that. But in this one, Shaggy is madly in love with Velma. His entire plot in this entire movie is just being in love with Velma, and it's kind of like it's weird because they couldn't think of anything for him to do other than fall in love with Velma. And of course, that made Scooby like really jealous, which is funny because this is exactly the same plot in Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated, the cartoon series that came out around the time that this did. But instead, it's Velma crushing on Shaggy with Scooby getting jealous and stuff. And Daphne, she's no longer doing like the theater type stuff like she was in the first movie, so that's changed with her. Velma, ooh boy, they changed her, and it was a really interesting thing when they changed her. But I kind of figured it right early on in the beginning of the movie. And so, like, but when it comes to cartoony stuff, what I'm talking about is Shaggy and Scooby are the most cartoony they've ever been. Like, Scooby did some Scooby-Dooey type stuff in the first movie, like dig a hole, go down the hole, and then pull the soil over, stuff like that. But in this one, he's walking on the walls, he's walking on the ceilings, his eyes bug out super bigger than they did in the last one. Um, but whatever reason, he's just taking pictures of everything. Then it's like, what is it? Like, you know how like once Shaggy, you know how when they smell food, they kind of like sniff the food. No, they sniff the air, and then they kind of like float in the air, and then they fly through the air. That's what Shaggy did in this. Like he smelled some food. No, he smelled Velma. He smelled Velma, and then he started floating in the air and flying towards her. And this was not a dream sequence. This was the real thing. And there was one other time where he got so upset he fell backwards or something like that. And then Scooby hit his head, and then Scooby started seeing other Scoobies flying around him in that bird-like fashion. Then both him and Scooby get into a fist fight. But you know how in cartoons they have like that puff of smoke that fogs up everywhere, and then you see like a bunch of hands thrown everywhere? They did that in this movie. I'm just kind of like, is this like geared for kids or something like that? 'Cause that's just kind of weird. Like, why would they go that distance and do that? Then all of a sudden, halfway into the movie, Shaggy has like a dream sequence, daydreaming, and it's like a musical. Then the last credits of the movie, when they do the montage, I don't know why they went this hard, but they didn't have to go this hard. It's a montage of them doing different music genres. Kind of like since Scooby-Doo's been in so many decades, since the 60s and the 70s. So you had like one era where they dress up like they're in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, they're in a rock band, they're rapping, and they're just dancing and singing. And I'm just kind of like, what the world is going on here? And then you have like Shaggy dressing up as Scooby, and then you have Velma dressing up as Daphne, and Daphne dressing up as Velma, and then you have Fred dressing like his classic way. I'm just kind of like, what the world? Now, one interesting thing that they also did in this is that they did the whole freeze like a statue thing. But what was clever, and I like this, what was clever is that Fred and Daphne found costumes like their classic cartoons. So they dressed up in them, and that was cool. That's how you do it right there. But one thing you don't want to do is that chase sequence. They got chased around with music. It was sped up, and you see them go through one door in one room and come out the complete opposite side over and over and over again. And it's kind of like, no, that's too cartoony. That don't even make logical sense to come out the other side of the room. Yeah, it's something a cartoon do, but you can't emulate everything the cartoon does. Now, one bit prop I would give is this huge twist with the whole monster thing. Now, first, let me just say, Scooby-Doo still looks like crap. The CGI on him is atrocious. It is an abomination of all things. And I think it got worse as the sequel came on. You think they would have more money to make the CGI look better. Not only that, but his face has kind of changed a little bit, and his color is more the light color brown from the James Gunn movie as opposed to the dark brown like it was in the first. Now, another thing about Scooby is that he's barely in the movie because they can't afford to CGI him. So sometimes you just forget he's even there. Now, what's crazy is that the monsters They have excellent CGI. At first, I thought they were in costume, but no. The only time they're in costume when they do like the feet or the hands. Other than that, it is CGI. How you gonna spend all the money on the monsters but not your primary character of Scooby-Doo? Even James Gunn knew to spend more money on Scooby-Doo than he did on the monsters and stuff. I'm just very shocked and surprised, but Scooby still looks like crap. The frog monsters look great. Now, what's interesting, it starts off with them unmasking somebody and they're all shocked. But you only see Fred, Daphne, Scooby, and Shaggy. You don't see Velma. I'm kind of like, oh, okay, I know why you don't see Velma and everything. So, because she is one of the villains in this. Now, that is a great twist. Why? Because Scooby-Doo people have the Mystery Incorporated gang, they've never been the villain. So for them to be the villain is the greatest twist of them all. But what is this about, you wondering? So they're at school and they're wearing a traditional outfit similar to that of like the cartoon, and school's out. Now, I don't know if Shaggy graduated because remember he got held back twice, but they're ready for summer vacation. So they go to Daphne's uncle's like hotel, which is really fancy, and they're gonna work there for the summer. And so while they're there working and stuff, Daphne and Fred get caught making out. So they reveal, yeah, we've been in a relationship. And so, like, for some reason, Shaggy's just falling in love with Velma. They don't really explain how he's just falling in love with her for the sake of falling in love with her. So that's bad writing right there. No build up, no nothing. And so she touched this little ruby gem type thing that's blue, and it puts like a witch ghost inside her body. And so they have to figure out who is causing all these like monster toads to like wreak havoc. And then they see in video there's a person in a cloak. And so like they can't see the person's face, and Velma purposely messed up the computer so they can't see. So they do like, you know, typical Scooby-Doo stuff. They find clues and they go looking for whatever they have to look for. And every time the monsters show up, I noticed Velma was not there. Of course, because she is the one controlling them. Well, they find out that there used to be a witch back in the day. And so like she caused havoc, but then like she died and stuff like that, right? And so she had a bunch of kids, so they figure, okay, maybe they try to find one of the descendants and stuff like that. Well, when they go there, they find like, you know, Velma. And like I said before, the actress is giving the best performance I've ever seen her give, man. She is killing it and stuff. But then she like escapes, and then it's revealed that like the dead witch put herself in like, you know, the gems and everything. And so, you know, they have to like save her and stuff. And so like, so she's possessed. So it's not like she's really evil. She's just possessed. And so Shaggy is like singing her a song, and she remembers that song, and she starts to sing along too, and it breaks her out of it, and she breaks the gem things. And then Scooby breaks the rest of the gems, and now like, you know, the witch ghost is gone because she was floating around like a ghost when she came out of like Velma. Also, they put Velma in warts. To show that, oh, all witches are evil, well, warts and all that old stereotypical crap. And so the frog people went down to regular size, and after that, you know, they just start singing that montage and everything. Oh, not before Velma and Shaggy share a kiss. But then they realize, oh, this did nothing for them, and they're just going to remain friends. Now, that's funny because now Velma and Scooby-Doo history is now a lesbian. Mythology, or what you want to call it, is now like a lesbian. What's funny about this is that the actress who plays Velma is a lesbian in real life. So they was ahead of their time in this movie. And so, like, with Daphne and Fred, this is where Fred is like a douche. So Shaggy is asking him advice on women, and he's all like, look, Shaggy, man, this is summer. You're supposed to have fun, mingle and everything. Like, you're not supposed to be serious. So he's basically saying he ain't serious with Daphne, and he's there to mingle. And he mingles with 3 girls playing golf, putting his arms around them. She gets pissed and she makes him jealous by just playing tennis with a bunch of guys. And it's just kind of like, when did his character become like this? Because he was never like that in the first movie and stuff. So that just never made no sense to me. And so, like I said before, the plot's not really bad, and how they find their clues is not bad either, because since Velma's not there to figure everything out, they have to figure everything out. And so, like I said before, the plot's not bad. The acting isn't bad. It's cartoony. It's like literally seeing a live action cartoon come to life. Now, if you like that, then that's totally fine. But for me, I like an adaptation. There are just certain things in animation that just don't work in real life. And yes, I know the James Gunn one has some silly stuff here too, but not this silly. I mean, they went full on Scooby do with this thing. And I still can't believe the dancing musical numbers that just randomly popped up. It's almost like they knew this movie wasn't gonna do well. So they're just like, just go out with a bang. And boy, they went out with a bang, all right? Because this was the last movie. I was wondering, why was this the last movie? Since the first one was so good. Then I saw like the cover of like the movie, and I was like, that looks a little too silly. And then I'm all like, all this silly stuff, that's what happened. It ended the live action movies. And then for the most part, this is the weakest out of the 4 live action Scooby-Doo movies. Now, I've never seen Daphne and Velma, the solo movie. I don't know how bad that is, but one person reviewed it and said it's not that great because it was direct to video and everything. So you know how those are. They couldn't even get, like, I think it was direct to streaming actually, because it was in the streaming times. But when it's direct to streaming, it's best sometimes just to stay away. Mufasa did not die for this. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.